Do you know what a T-7 disruptor is? What it does to an organic being? That is a quote from Hera Syndulla. This transmission will answer those questions along with who built the T-7 Ion Disruptor, who used it, and why it became so famous in the early days of the Galactic Empire. Then we'll dive into Legends to see how disruptors are handled there. This is an interesting one as this weapon sits at the precipice of morality in the Star Wars galaxy. The most common way we hear ion is in frying electronics or disabling ships. The T-7 Ion Disruptor is far worse. This is a weapon built to the size of a large rifle and can be fired by individual soldiers. The weapon is used for both anti-personnel and anti-material, as the discharge from the weapon is designed to overload whatever target at the molecular level. Against machinery, it acts like the ion-type weapons that we're all very familiar with, but kicked up a few notches. Against organic targets, we'll focus on the word disruptor. It acts as disruptors do in Star Wars. It unravels the target at the most base level. The ion disruptor is a hybrid term that takes the energy overload of the ion portion of the weapon and uses the disruptor technology to get into the target's organic makeup. The combination result is in molecular destruction. As I mentioned, the weapon itself is an elongated rifle with a forward power assembly and a vented barrel to avoid overheating. The weapons can be easily disassembled and reassembled for ease of transport and quick deployment to a battlefield. The bulk of the Imperial's disruptors were stenciled and packaged by Sienar contractors. Sienar is the same company that produces the TIE fighter variations. The weapons were also popular with black market dealers whenever they could grab a shipment by either stealing them or lining the pockets of certain Imperial officers. The T-7s were ordered under the designation Sector Security Assets, but in reality, they are used as extreme measures to punish people while making an example for anyone who would hear about it. It seems even within the confines of the Empire that commits so many atrocities in the decades that it rules the galaxy, that the T-7 felt like a bridge too far for many. When it was decided to use the weapon, a member of the ISB or military prefect signs a requisition form. That form has a sealed crate of disassembled disruptors shipped from a discreet mid-rim warehouse. When the weapons arrive where they're going to be needed, they're given to the select few troops who need to use them. Distributing them is kept as quiet as possible, which is a little bit strange because the result of using them is a loud statement, one that sows fear. If you're getting value or entertainment out of any of my transmissions, it would mean a lot if you would join the Remnant and subscribe. The biggest atrocity the disruptors were used for is the Siege of Lasan. Lasan is a planet in a system of the same name in wild space. The planet was settled by a rare species called the Lasat. The Lasat would not cave to the Empire, so the disruptors were called in. They were used, and not only on the Lasat's lines of defense, but the civilian population as well. At least one survivor escaped the massacre, and maybe only one, Zeb Orrelios, who joins up with a small rebel group. He gives his life to fighting the tyrannical empire, but the survivor's guilt and trauma he witnesses stays with him for life. In his time with Phoenix Squadron, Zeb and his new allies find a shipment of these horrific weapons. This is when the Empire is exposed as purposely using the weapons and that the genocide on Lasat was not an isolated incident. Not only that, but the rebellion is in a fragile state at this time. Generally, any supplies, ships, etc. that can be used for their cause are used, but the rebellion has a line where the Empire doesn't. Instead of turning these weapons against the very monsters who used them in the first place, the rebels destroy them. Knowing that these weapons were a normal part of the Empire's war effort leads the rebellion into being more proactive in keeping them off of battlefields. They would intercept shipments, blow up stock, and go after low-ranking Imperials, squeezing them for information to track down the higher-ups that would have the information needed to track down these weapons. At the same time all of this is going on in the Hot War, there are conversations about the disruptors in the Senate. Before the Empire and before the Senate was basically neutered, they denounced the use of these weapons. The Senate was still assembling under the Empire at this time, but even under the thumb of Palpatine, many representatives, even those from the core worlds, agreed on trying to prohibit the use of them. Part of the Rebel Cell's campaign in destroying the disruptors came in publicly shaming politicians who requested their use. When the disruptors did make it into use, the enemies of the Empire had to adapt their tactics. Sending in armor, droids, or combatants would lead to destruction and death. The only way to survive the T-7s was to avoid being in their line of sight. This increased rebel effectiveness in guerrilla strikes and engaging only on their terms in hit-and-run campaigns. Many of the Empire's enforcement tactics are harsh, but they're done through survivable pain. They are trying to teach society lessons that they won't forget to get them to fall in line. The disruptors did such damage, there was no coming back from it. Many who would fall along the distribution line of the weapons would aid the rebels in destroying the shipments, even if those individuals had no interest in joining the rebel cause directly. This is also another instance where the Empire's lack of care and lack of foresight creates a situation that would come back to bite them in the future. The empty promises of security and stability for the galaxy are often put into action through excessive force. This excess rallies more citizens who may keep their heads down and go along with the program to act out, leading many to join the rebellion who might otherwise have stayed quiet. Keeping things on the Lasat, the genocide the Empire perpetrates toward these creates at least one soldier in Orrelios who will never give up the fight against the Empire, and through time, even turns an ISB agent into a spy for the rebellion. Now I want to look into the expanded universe for a deeper history on disruptor weapons. Going back to the Old Republic, the Republic itself and many planetary charters banned disruptor technology for its uniquely cruel effect. That ban persisted for 1,000 years. It technically persisted into the Age of the Empire, but the Empire's laws were for the citizens, not the ones enforcing them. The specific weapon we've been talking about is the T-7 through Sienar logistics. Legends gives some other examples, making it a class of weapon more than an individual rifle. Tenloss disruptor rifles, Triani variants of disruptors, classified weapons, and even much smaller pistols that were often used by assassins or crime syndicates and warlords can be found. Legends also backs up the points that I was covering at the beginning of this transmission. Disruptors aren't exactly a military asset in the same way that blaster rifles are. They are intentionally utilized to instill fear. Legends continuity sees them in massacres, purges, and assassinations, not used in battle formations. One very prevalent example of disruptor weapon technology was introduced in live action a handful of years ago. Going back further than that, Boba Fett made his animated debut in the infamous Star Wars Holiday Special with a disruptor rifle on his back. Din Djarin makes use of this weapon in live action in the first season of The Mandalorian. Before we get to see that weapon in action, we get a single line from one of the coolest design characters in Star Wars talking to the second coolest design character in Star Wars. When Darth Vader has all the bounty hunters assembled on the bridge of the Executor, he tells them he wants the targets brought in alive. Then he singles out Boba Fett and says, "No disintegrations." The weapon Din Djarin uses, and presumably Boba Fett's, is a slightly different technology to the T-7. It's classified as a phase pulse rifle. The shock it delivered could range from stun all the way up to disintegration at long ranges, making it a very versatile and effective weapon for a hunter. Check out this transmission next for more weapons from the Star Wars galaxy.